Amina stepped into the Mission Training Academy with quiet footsteps, blending into the background as if she were trying to disappear. She was the smallest recruit in her batch, delicate in appearance, soft-spoken, and always polite, and that was enough for everyone to label her as weak before she even began. While others bragged, laughed loudly, and showed off their strength, Amina simply observed from a corner, taking in every detail with steady eyes. Her silence made her an easy target for whispers. Some trainees claimed she only got accepted because the academy wanted to look inclusive. Others joked that she would quit after the first week. A few even bet money on how quickly she would fail, and though she heard all of it, she never responded. During drills, instructors barely paid attention to her, assuming she couldn't keep up with the physically stronger recruits. When they demonstrated combat techniques, they didn't expect her to hold pads, and when they practiced running exercises, they didn't call out her times. Amina didn't complain, didn't argue, didn't even frown. She simply trained in silence, moving with a discipline that no one recognized because no one bothered to look closely at her dot. But behind her quiet nature was a past no one knew. Her father, a retired commando, had trained her since childhood in controlled, efficient self-defense. He taught her discipline, timing, and restraint long before she ever set foot in the academy. She didn't show off because he always told her, "Strength isn't loud, Amina, it's precise." And she lived by those words. The academy soon announced Endurance Day, a public test where every trainee would face a random opponent in front of all instructors and students, a test that measured skill, reaction, and mental control. The announcement created excitement among the recruits, but for Amina, it brought a quiet tension. She knew this would be the first moment where she wouldn't be able to avoid attention, the first moment she would have no choice but to reveal a piece of what she truly was capable of. While everyone else prepared with loud confidence, Amina prepared with silence, knowing something no one else knew. Underestimating her was about to become their biggest mistake. Rashid was the kind of trainee everyone noticed the moment he walked into a room. Big, loud, confident, always competing, always showing off. He loved attention, and he especially loved proving that he was stronger than everyone else. When he first saw Amina during warm-ups, quiet, small, and keeping to herself, a smirk appeared on his face. To him, she was the perfect target, someone he could mock to boost his own ego without any risk of being challenged at first. The teasing was small. He'd walk past her and say things like, "Careful, feather girl, the weights might crush you." Or, "Try not to faint during warm-ups," loud enough for others to laugh. Amina always ignored him, her focus never breaking, which only irritated Rashid more. People like him didn't know how to handle silence. They needed reactions to feel powerful, and Amina gave him none. Over the next few days, his behavior grew worse. He would intentionally bump into her during training, steal her spot in line, or mock her during physical drills. When she completed an exercise well, he'd roll his eyes and say she got lucky. Trainees around them laughed, not because they hated Amina, but because they assumed she was too weak to stand up for herself. Her refusal to fight back made them believe Rashid was right. One afternoon, during a break, Rashid cornered Amina near the equipment rack. He towered over her and said loudly, "Tell me, how long do you think you'll last here? A week? Maybe 2. She simply stepped aside without a word and walked away. That single act, a calm dismissal, felt like an insult to Rashid. It wasn't fear. It wasn't defeat. It was indifference. And nothing wounded his ego more than being ignored. So when the instructors announced the pairings for the upcoming Endurance Day match, fate delivered the moment Rashid had been waiting for. Amina versus Rashid. The reaction was immediate. Trainees burst into laughter, some clapping, some shaking their heads. A few joked that the instructor should keep a medic ready because she might get knocked out in the first 10 seconds. Even the instructors exchanged uneasy glances, already planning to intervene early to avoid accidents. Rashid walked toward the arena with a victorious grin, convinced he was about to teach the weak girl her final lesson. But Amina walked in with steady breaths and quiet eyes, ready to teach him something far more important. The arena buzzed with energy long before the match even began. Endurance Day was always exciting, but this pairing, Amina versus Rashid, had stirred a different kind of anticipation. Word spread so quickly that nearly every trainee from nearby halls rushed to watch. By the time the whistle blew for assembly, 284 witnesses had gathered around the square training circle, whispering, betting, and laughing among themselves. Rashid walked into the arena first, soaking in the attention like a performer on stage. He flexed his arms, cracked his knuckles loudly, and pointed at Amina with a mocking grin, as if the match was already decided. Some trainees laughed. Others shook their heads in pity for Amina. A few even turned away, unable to watch what they assumed would be a quick and painful defeat. Then Amina stepped into the circle. She didn't look nervous, angry, or intimidated. Her face was calm, her breathing steady, her posture relaxed. She didn't react to the laughter or the whispers. She didn't even look at Rashid. Instead, she focused on grounding her feet, adjusting her stance the way her father had taught her. She wasn't preparing to fight with strength. She was preparing to fight with precision. The head instructor raised his hand, scanning both fighters carefully, his expression troubled. He knew Rashid's aggression. He knew Amina's size. He knew this might end badly, but rules were rules. He dropped his hand. The match began. Rashid charged forward instantly, relying on pure force, aiming to grab her and throw her down in one explosive move. But Amina moved like water, soft, flowing, effortless. She shifted to the side with a speed that stunned even the instructors. Rashid stumbled forward, confused. The crowd murmured. That wasn't luck. That was skill. Rashid tried again, swinging his arm toward her shoulder. She ducked under the strike with a smooth pivot, her feet sliding across the mat like she'd practiced that motion 1,000 times. She didn't attack. She didn't strike. She only avoided. Calmly, perfectly, whispers turned into silence. The trainees who'd mocked her now leaned forward, trying to understand what they were seeing. A girl they had dismissed as weak was moving with the reflexes of a trained fighter. Rashid's confidence faltered as he tried to grab her again, frustration burning in his eyes. Every attempt he made, she evaded with minimal movement, barely breaking a sweat. Amina wasn't afraid. She was waiting, watching, letting him exhaust himself, and it was becoming clear to everyone. Watching, the helpless girl was not helpless at all. Rashid's frustration finally boiled over. The more Amina slipped away from his attacks, the more the crowd began to murmur, and the more his ego screamed inside him. He wasn't just trying to win anymore, he was trying to crush her, to prove to everyone that he was still the strongest in the room. So he abandoned technique and charged with raw aggression, reaching out to grab her with both hands. This time, he caught her wrist. The crowd gasped, convinced the match was over. Rashid smirked triumphantly as he tightened his grip, pulling her closer to overpower her. But the moment his fingers locked around her wrist, Amina's eyes shifted, calm, focused, razor sharp. It was the look of someone who had been waiting for exactly this moment, in a split-second motion. She stepped in instead of pulling away. Her body rotated with practiced precision, her shoulder dropping, her feet planting firmly into the mat. Every movement flowed in one clean line, the way her father had taught her since childhood. Rashid expected resistance, a struggle he got none. Instead, Amina redirected his force, using his momentum against him. Her hand slid over his elbow. Her hip turned. Her grip tightened in a perfect joint lock. Before Rashid even realized what was happening, his arm was bent backward at an unnatural angle. His confident smirk vanished. Panic flashed in his eyes. A hush fell over the arena. Rashid tried to pull away, using all his strength, but Amina's technique didn't depend on strength. It depended on leverage. She adjusted her stance by a single inch, and the pressure multiplied instantly. His knees buckled. He screamed. The sound echoed across the hall, freezing every witness where they stood. His arm bent further, the joint stretching beyond its limit. And then, a loud, sharp crack. Gasps rippled through the crowd as Rashid collapsed to the ground, clutching his arm in agony. Amina released him immediately, stepping back with steady breaths, her face calm but not triumphant. She hadn't broken his arm out of pride or revenge. She had simply ended the threat. Instructors rushed forward, lifting Rashid carefully as he whimpered in pain. The chief instructor knelt beside Amina, studying her with astonished eyes, trying to understand how a quiet, overlooked girl had executed a maneuver so clean, so efficient, that even advanced trainees struggled to perform it correctly. Around them, the 284 trainees remained frozen, eyes wide, mouths open. No one laughed now. No one whispered. No one underestimated her anymore. In a single fluid moment, Amina had changed everything. The silence that settled over the academy after Rashid's fall was unlike anything Amina had ever felt. It wasn't fear. It wasn't shock. It was the weight of sudden respect, heavy, focused, and directed entirely at her. As Rashid was carried to the med bay, every pair of eyes followed Amina, but for once, not with mockery. They watched her the way people watch a mystery they never noticed until it stood right in front of them. Amina stood quietly at the center of the arena, her hands relaxed by her sides, her breathing steady. She hadn't celebrated, hadn't smiled, hadn't even lifted her head to acknowledge the stunned crowd. She simply waited, calm and controlled, as if the entire match had been nothing more than a routine drill. In truth, she felt no pride in what she had done, only a quiet sadness that it had come to this. She never wanted to hurt anyone. She only wanted to survive the academy on her own terms. When the chief instructor approached her, he stopped a few steps away, studying her with a seriousness she hadn't earned from him before. "Where did you learn that technique?" he asked softly, unable to hide the mixture of awe and confusion in his voice. Amina didn't boast. She didn't brag. She simply replied, "My father taught me." He believed skill should be quiet, not loud. That single sentence spread across the trainees like a ripple. People who once ignored her now exchanged looks of admiration. A girl they had spent days laughing at had just demonstrated more discipline, control, and mastery than most of them had shown all year. Without saying a word, she had dismantled their assumptions one by one. Later that evening, instead of whispers and jokes, Amina heard her name spoken with respect. Some trainees approached her not with pity, but with genuine curiosity. Others apologized, awkward and unsure, but earnest. A few even asked if she could teach them what she knew, though she politely declined. She wasn't looking for attention or followers. Her goal had always been simple: earn her place through effort, not noise. The academy changed that day. Instructors moved her to the advanced training group. Trainees began watching her during drills, studying her discipline instead of mocking her silence. Even Rashid, once healed, never dared to meet her eyes again, not out of fear, but out of humbled acknowledgement. Over time, her story became part of the academy's unspoken culture. New recruits heard it on their first week. Don't underestimate the quiet ones. You don't know what battles they've already mastered. Amina never asked for fame or recognition. Yet she became a symbol, proof that real strength doesn't shout. It simply reveals itself when the moment demands it.